governments are going to change and incentivize companies to be more environmental friendly and not just greenwashing, really environmental friendly. We see also that carbon credits are going to change. The cost and all these games with the trading are going to change and will enable companies.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Actionable ESG Talks Series, brought to you by AKFI, Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And this talk series brings together great minds to discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I am the co-host of this talk series, here with Manuel, the other co-host, and our today's guest, Tamer Simon. Hi, Tamer.
Hello. Very happy to be here.
So glad to have you. An awesome background. That's such a good distraction of this call. I mean, looking at the view, talking about the future and sustainability.
Yeah.
Nice
job. Move the sky.
So before we start, allow me to do a quick, brief background intro about Tamer to our audience. So Dr. Tamer Simons, it's a PhD. He is the chief scientist at Microsoft Israel R&D Center. And Tamer is a futurist and thought leader who forecasts technology trends in digital transformation. He led private and governmental organizations driving innovation and transformation through technology, strategic planning, and thought leadership. Tamer has a passion for research and implementing technologies to improve every aspect of our day-to-day working environment and supporting infrastructure. And Tamer has a Doctor of Philosophy and degree in emergency and disaster from the university in Israel, and also the degree in AI, artificial intelligence. Thank you, Tamer, for taking the time joining us today. It's great to have you.
Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah, to start our conversation, we usually open up in a broad spectrum, and we like to let our guests to take the lead in whatever way you prefer this conversation to be. So what are your thoughts on current sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation landscape?
So I think also the timing is very interesting and important, because if we see just the last few weeks, we saw the crazy heat waves across the Americas, across Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, everywhere. And I think this is the first imperative as us as humankind. The major and biggest crisis that we face is the climate crisis. So I think we need to see how we tackle this as humanity. Very similar but different again, how we tackled as humanity the COVID crisis. But we need to understand that we need to harness all of our resources, our brains, thought processes, and everything, just to see how we can mitigate and hopefully ease or even stop the crisis, the upcoming crisis. If we look at the forecast, we know that almost every country will have 4 hell days a year. So maybe 40 degrees, that 4 such days. And what does it mean for us? So it goes back to sustainability. How do we make the business sustainable? And really, it's also, I think, connected also to sustainability and ESG, how we make a more beneficial capitalism to the planet, and how we can assist humanity solve, not only leave it to governments, because we know governments are slower than the private sector. So we need to see also this, I call it a different flavor of PPP, public-private partnership, to really tackle this crisis. And I think it's also very interesting timing because the latest issue of The Economist has a lot of criticism on ESG, because ESG started 2004, so almost 20 years. And we need to see what is going right and what is going wrong and what do we need to correct. And these three letters we see that are confusing many, many people, not only the investors, but also companies, whether we need to focus on the environmental, the societal, or the governance. And there are many trade-offs in between those things that we need to understand. And if I'm looking at digital transformation and how it connects, so digital transformation is, I think, the most important business strategy in the last 7 years. It really started around 2014, but we saw this really, the start of adoption around 2017, many companies, and 2018 more rapidly. But the idea is, again, and this is part of the thing, that we need to have common language and also mutual understanding of the concept of digital transformation. Most people refer it to the technology, and then how we use technology, these cool technologies, blockchain, AI, cloud, IoT, all of these great buzzwords, the metaverse, and then to see how we connect it to the business. But the transformation comes first, and this is why it uses transformation, because we need to transform the way we do business, whether towards the environment, towards society, and toward governance, but of course, looking forward, that we need to use digital tools and to address and leverage the data. And here it connects to sustainability and ESG. We simply don't know. Most companies do not know what is their carbon footprint, what is their sustainability score. So through data and through this digital transformation, organizations will be able to start measuring, collect the data, and really understand what is their global or local footprint around sustainability, ESG, climate crisis, and what are the needed steps that they need to do to start improving and really understand the impact of this transformation.
Thank you, Tomer. And really a very good introduction, because you started to link sustainability, digital transformation. And one element that I may want to ask you, what do you see the role of the stakeholders, especially the employees? They need to retrain people, they need to upskill people. And of course, that also changes the culture of the business, as you mentioned, the culture of the company, even the purpose of the company, as it opens to the stakeholders, as well as the protecting the environment.
So, great question, very complex, but I think once we understand, let's take Generation Z, the newest generation that started working, we see this is a priority for them. Okay, and if they want to work in your company, you will have to do something towards the environment on a broader scale, and of course, also social impact. And it's a few days ago, McKinsey released their new survey. If we look at the Great Resignation, the Great Reshuffle, I think the third or the fourth reason was meaning. People are looking for meaning in their work, and meaning is not just the thing that I'm doing, but also the impact that my company, or the ability that I can return to my community, to my country, and of course, to a global scale. And this is why I see it very, very connected. And you see many organizations understand that to attract the younger talent, they need to provide them the ability to do ES. Okay, environmental and social goods. The governance is less relevant, I think, for the younger generation, but you need to have different CSR, corporate social responsibility, and to provide them the capability to execute on it.
Oh, thank you. Indeed, this connection becomes stronger and stronger. And actually, as you already mentioned, but Gen Z, not only in their working life, right? They have a different perspective on the environment and on sustainability, but also in their private life, in the way they buy, what they buy, paying attention of the sourcing of the raw material, paying attention of the conditions of the workers in other countries. It is, as you said, it is really a very major change in ESG and sustainability. And bringing back digital transformation, actually, this is how companies can track, as you mentioned already, that they have difficulties to measure carbon footprint, but they have to track everything coming in, being processed inside the company in terms of products and services, and being outputted in terms of final value proposition to the customer.
I agree. And if you connect it to the SDG of the UN, Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, they must and they need to have this data. Without the data, you simply cannot comply.
So, building on this idea, actually, a lot of companies do, at least research shows that a lot of companies do have a lot of difficulties to do this transition to digital. Not only the transition to sustainability, but the transition to digital. Some numbers quote up to 70-80% of the investments are not returning the whole value of the investment. So it's ROI negative. We can use this. And what do we need to do in order to make sure that digital transformation is also part of the transformation of the companies? We did some research at AKFI, by the way, and we found out that there is very little in terms of metrics and measurements of the digital transformation. There's much more on ESG, actually, sometimes too much. So how do you see this transition?
So first, digital transformation, again, it's a business strategy. And if it cannot bring the revenue, the ROI for the business, there is no incentive or reason to do it, okay? At the bottom line, private organizations or any organization, it needs to make money, profit, and bring, of course, return or value to the shareholders.
Absolutely.
And again, digital transformation, one of the things that I'm also teaching it at one of the universities here in Israel for executive leaders. It's a top-down process. Digital transformation cannot be a bottom-up approach. And if the CEO is not fully on board and not engaged and not approving it, and is not just approving it and say, okay, do the digital transformation, he needs to commit and be present and follow up with the steering committees. It will not succeed. And this is part of a very different approach from other strategies, that digital transformation. And the word transformation, it's the scope, the width, the breadth, all this. It's a very wide scope of transforming how you operate, whether internally, whether towards your employees, whether towards your customers, or whether you are becoming a data-driven organization. So these are the 4 dimensions of the transformation, and people need to understand. And this is why one of the first things to do is start small. Start with something that you know that will show ROI, and it will also be like a flywheel that will enable you to recruit or enlist more stakeholders to the process, more leaders to the process, because we are humans, and the change management aspect is the most difficult aspect of digital transformation as well. And you cannot start with a cross-organization, cross-divisions, cross-everything digital transformation. Choose a leader that can work with you, that really believes in it, and start with him. This will help you enlist and recruit the other leaders following this success, and then you can be sure that you'll have a step-by-step also on your ROI.
I hope our listeners are taking their notebook and notes, because the most common, and this is I observed from students also at Cornell, the most common three factors that are mentioned when you talk about roadblocks to sustainability and roadblocks to digital transformation are mindset, culture, and actually investment, the level of investment. And once these are done, as you said, without real preparation, without real starting the flywheel of change to take your idea, without starting this, you have only frustration at the end because things fall apart. Leaders move to other topics. Leaders change. Also, we've seen change of leadership doing the change of direction of the company, especially in the transformation processes. So yes, it's change, and I really like this concept of a flywheel change that starts.
If you connect also to the leadership and the digital transformation, the data, I think the digital transformation will help you first tackle the governance, very, very well towards the shareholder, towards the regulator, because you will have to really streamline the processes, all the business processes, internal, external, move them data-driven. And if I quote Thomas Ilves, the president of Estonia, he said, once you go digital, there is no corruption, okay? And this is on the governance, that you cannot do anything to play by the books. If it's digital, it's there, it's transparent, and it's there, and there are no envelopes, it's very, very difficult to have corruption. And you can see Estonia, by the way, as the most advanced digital government. And there, again, corruption is very, very tough once you do digital transformation.
Right, the use of blockchain especially makes traceability a very big factor in digital transformation.
Again, I would go first to the process and then to the technology. And although digital transformation, the digital comes first, really the transformation comes first. The digital is enabling the transformation.
Actually, Isabella knows that I was proposing to say transformation digital, not digital transformation, because it's the transformation, it's the change. So
in Hebrew, it's
we
like
resonate on this theme. We
excellent.
Resonate.
Yeah.
Isabella, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I know you enjoy it. I can see it, but please pitch in if you have any questions or comments.
Absolutely. No, this conversation is great. Please continue. And I like to maybe add a note about the transformation. Then it comes back to each one of us as a human, as Tamer mentioned. So it sounds like the change of ourselves, the change of the human mindset is the frontier of this whole movement, this whole transformation process. Would you agree on that?
Yes, humans, again, no matter the level, I think it was Churchill. He has very nice quotes that people love change, but they want that everything will stay the same. This is the main challenge that we see everywhere, okay? And this is why you need to see this flywheel, the short feedback loops, and start it with these quick wins of the digital transformation and start showing and selling the success to the other leaders in the organization. Because even if it's the strongest CEO, if his VPs, SVPs, EVPs don't want, it will not happen, okay? So, but without the CEO, nothing will happen in digital transformation. And again, there is a very nice quote by Peter Drucker. If you want to do something new, you have to stop doing something old, okay?
Very interesting. I think, Isabella, this could be a topic for your next book, but in your current book, when you talk about the digital mind, I think you definitely address the philosophical and the cultural and the religious issues, the religious philosophy of transforming people, of people getting along with new technologies and being impacted and reacting and coping and developing under this, if I understood your book correctly.
You get it 100%. And as Tamara mentioned, the old key, the old way of thinking will not open the new door, will not open the new path, right, to the transformation. So absolutely. And I found a very typical, I would say, feature of philosophy lover. It's that we like to refer to the quotes because they're really, they're really true. The quotes.
They simplify and give us the gist of everything, of this truth injected to us directly. Yeah.
The essence. Yes.
Exactly.
Well, time is going very, very fast. So I think we address really one issue that we need to address in this kind of business discussions, because companies, at least in the last 50 years, the whole tenet of capitalism was about the primacy of shareholder, just another quote, right? And this primacy of shareholder now changes to the primacy of the stakeholder. And we cannot forget about profitability. So how do we see this transition to sustainability, to digitalization, to digital transformation, while also maintaining and growing profitability? And to finish the idea, many times people think sustainability, it's a cost center, not a profit center. And we need to move it to become profitable so companies can progress, right? You mentioned, before we connected, you mentioned about the, for instance, the economists looking at the ESG financing and saying that the ESG financing maybe needs to be, I'll be nice saying, refreshed.
Yeah. So first, I think it really depends on the organization. But even if you're CPG, a consumer packaged goods, and you find a way to make your packages greener and lower the impact, of course, first you might find better customer or more customers from Gen Z, for example, send it to the next generation that will rule and manage everyone. So I think through sustainability, and they can create and build new segments and even increase their total addressable market through simple changes like this. This is one, but I think also if you're a technology company, and I'll give an example of also Microsoft, we are moving all our data centers. So today, just imagine around 2% of global electricity is driven by Azure, okay?
Wow.
And already from it, 65% is from renewable energy. And the goal is 100% by 2030. So you understand the impact that it does on the global electricity and electric grid, and this is only Microsoft. And so the potential here is huge also for the business. There is an issue with, it's called the green gap, that new technologies like hydrogen fuel are much more expensive. So how do you compensate for this gap? I want to go green, but the technology is so much more expensive. So if we look at the last decade, we see that really the prices, for example, for solar panels and solar energy have dropped really significantly, and also for wind turbine technology, but we'll see it also for hydrogen and energy storage. But again, there are still things that to solve, and this is part of the commitment for companies. I think overall, and most governments that are going to see the changing regulatory field and frameworks, that most governments are going to change and incentivize companies to be more environmental friendly and not just greenwashing, really environmental friendly. We see also that carbon credits are going to change. The cost and all these games with the trading are going to change and will enable companies to really leverage their carbon, even their negative carbon footprint, to raise money and to use it as assets to improve and change, and then leverage again like a circular economy with the carbon credits that they received to invest it forward. So I think there is a lot of potential, and we saw many companies that are also doing vertical integration, that are starting to control their entire supply chain to make it sustainable. By the way, a year and a half ago, Microsoft I think it's the first company globally that changed also Scope 3 and demanded all of the suppliers of Microsoft will incorporate green and environmental friendly real strategies in their companies. Otherwise, they cannot be a supplier of Microsoft. And really you want, so this is also the play of the largest corporations globally to use it as leverage on smaller or on their entire supply chain to become more green. So it's a complex play, and the entire ecosystem should understand the interactions and really encourage it.
And this is very important because once a leader like Microsoft, I'll mention also Walmart because we had a case study about Walmart. Once this kind of global players introduce rules for their supply chain, now you move the equation from being just large public companies to small private companies. There are thousands and thousands of suppliers that have to align and they have to comply. And frankly, they scramble a little bit with the terminology of ESG and sustainability and digitalization and so on. But it's very encouraging that this happens at that scale. And I want to mention something also interesting, since we talked about philosophy and so on. We had an interview with Michael Rada. He's from the Czech Republic, correct, Isabella?
Yes.
And Michael Rada has a very interesting approach, is do not recycle. Start to think at the beginning, not at the end, on how you recycle, but how you create a recycle-free economy. And he has some progress in these areas as ambassadors all over the world. So there are thinking processes which also are very encouraging. You know, changes in philosophy, to say it this way.
As an organization, one of the things that, I think it's really connected to the recycle. If you, as an organization, develop a new information system to use in your organization, you need to also address, even if it's on day one, you need to understand how do you sunset this system, okay? How do you close it down? So this is, again, for any item that you produce, you need to understand the circular economy of it and to understand even the last day of its use and what to do with it. And also guide your customers, the employees, and also, if it's internal, use it, but you need to plan for the entire life cycle of a system, of a product, of everything.
Exactly. From what we call it, the market requirements documents to the end sunset has to be sustainability and recyclability, if I can coin the term or use the term.
Reusability, recyclability, whatever you want, but just make sure that you have some sort of a circular economy that you won't put it in a dumpster.
Exactly. It gets recycled. Well, our time goes very fast. Isabella, I'll turn to you. If you have some questions, if you want to bring maybe any other questions in the conversation.
Thank you. Tamer, as the philosopher and the futurist, don't laugh. You make this sounds like a fun question, but it's serious. It's a serious question for you. What's your philosophical belief on the future of digital transformation and sustainability in this rapidly changing world?
So first, I want to quote the previous UN General Secretary General. He said that we are the first generation and the last generation that can do something about the climate crisis. So first, this is a global and first imperative that it's a call for action, that we need to do something. And I think the last few weeks have showed that really these hell days are global. And it's not in the Middle East, it's not in the Americas, it's not in Europe, it's really everywhere. So this is first. So, and also the second one is, so the second one is around digital transformation and the evolution and the maturity of this strategy. it's around 5 years that we saw this evolving strategy. And I think today the organizations are able and are encouraged to see how to leverage this digital transformation and really use it to drive real sustainable SDG goals, sustainable development goals of the UN, and of course the ESG, because, and this is part of, once you have the data, you can ask better questions, your organization, your employees, your customers, your supply chain, your stakeholders, your shareholders, and also provide much better information. And the last one, I think that through this digital transformation and this data, we saw that the SEC, many stock exchange, publicly traded companies are going to be required to really provide real information, not greenwashed information about their sustainable activities, but really show us the money, okay? Show us where you really do the impact. And through this digital transformation, they will be able also to show the regulator, to show the shareholders, and to show the community at large, the countries, the global customer base, how they're really doing around the sustainability or ESG.
Actually, AKFI participated in a number of public inquiries from Security and Exchange Commission, from the Singapore Exchange, from the IOSCO, which is sort of the umbrella organization. And when we reviewed actually the proposals, we found a relatively, naive view about what AI can do. For instance, one of our proposals was use for training the common data set. Because if you don't train your AI using the same training mechanism, you get different results. And people actually, going back to Isabella's question about the philosophy, philosophically and humanly, we think the machine is better than the human, but the machine is only as good as the data set we provided to train it. So you send the machine to the wrong school, you get the wrong results.
So it's a complex discussion. I don't think we'll have time, but again, what I agree that regarding the data, but we do see, again, that humans and AI can do better, especially also regarding the environment. If you look at the world computer, a lot of things that if you look at the climate crisis and the challenges we have are becoming data issues or compute challenges. And this is why we need also to combine this digital transformation, all these capabilities and AI, all this, it's more than big data, it's explosive data, the size of the environmental, the biodiversity data. So this is why we need to work together with AI to solve these problems.
I see this is already an invitation for a follow-up conversation on this topic and how to really do data in the or AI in the right way for sustainability in ESG. But in the interest of time, we'll have to take a promise for a rain check, the way we say, for the next call. And I'll turn it back to Isabel.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamer, for the wonderful conversation. Thank you for your insights from a philosophical, not just technological, not just social, almost covering across all the aspects that we need to work holistically on. And thank you, Manuel, for the comments and notes. And most importantly, thank you for all our audience for taking the time tuning in with us, be part of this conversation and this thoughtful movement. And make sure you also tuning in every week for a new episode of Actionable ESG Talks Series. You will gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until the next time, goodbye from Isabella, Manuel, and Tamer.
Goodbye, Tomer, and thank you very much.